and we are studying the book of Ecclesiastes, which is sort of unsettling, but it's the message that it teaches is so important for us all to know. The message is, I ought to say, it's 12 chapters. It's not like one message, but it really is. It's sort of logic. He's taking us down a path here, and so we kind of get the conclusion of it all. He literally says it that way. Let us hear the conclusion. So here's my findings here. I'm going to type in, we're in Ecclesiastes chapters 7 through 12. Yeah. 7 through 12. You've got it there on the church page. Yesterday was a bummer for the 6 p.m. Live stream before the fellowship group meetings. Just didn't work out, and it was strange. I had my phone said I had full reception, and I've done it there like probably 7 times before, and there's never even been a little glitch. So I don't know what the deal was, but I guess from now on maybe I won't do it at the park and I'll just do it here. It's more reliable, I guess. So anyway, I'm sorry for that. I hope that your fellowship groups still were good. We had good fellowship. We really did. In my group, it was just encouraging to me, and really enjoyed the talk that we had. Some of you, Renee and Lindell, are over there on the church page this morning. Thank you guys for the talk. That was really a blessing. Yeah. Lindell, says, what a great blessed fellowship last night. Praise the Lord. Wasn't that great? And good morning to everybody. Kevin, Renee, Pam. And let's see if Facebook's up. Hey, good morning, Omar. Glad you're with us. I've been praying for you. I hope you're feeling better. And then good morning, Kathy and Jerry Lee. All right. Well, let's grab our Bibles. Ecclesiastes 7 through 12 today. So yesterday we studied the first half of the book. Now we get the second half. And he has been... I imagine it because he titles himself the preacher, which I think Dave asked yesterday, what does the word Ecclesiastes mean? It would be preachings. It would be the preaching of the preacher, So a lot of times we refer to ecclesiastical as like church, but in the old sense, it was the teacher, the one who was speaking. We would call the act of teaching ecclesiastics or Ecclesiastes. So that's why it's just basically named after what he's titled himself in the first verse of the book. And he positions himself as, I have gone down a path. In fact, I've gone down a lot of paths. And really, Ecclesiastes is kind of like an autobiography or a retelling of just all of these journeys that he did. You could call it the adventures of the preacher. And he was on a quest. There was this thing he was searching for. He was looking for satisfaction and meaning. He didn't want his life to be vanity. And so he seemed to notice a lot of vanity around him. He thought, well, I better pursue everything I can to figure out what is not vanity, what is not meaningless, where can I find true value. And so the first 6 chapters of the book, he explained several of the avenues in which he traveled. He tried to, success was one of the biggest things he attempted. He thought, if I can be very successful, then I will be satisfied. So his way of defining success was to build a lot of buildings. He had this massive empire that he created, just always under construction, always building something. He built the temple, built his house, built a bunch of stuff, his whole kingdom, just magnificent, the wealth of Solomon. So he obtained a lot of wealth. He built a lot of stuff. He hired a lot of people. He bought a lot of exotic things. Apes and peacocks and all that stuff. Anyway, he goes down that whole avenue of success and comes back and says, that didn't work. I build all of this stuff and then I'm just going to die. And somebody else who didn't work for it is going to sit in my chair and enjoy all of these blessings. and then he's going to die, and then somebody else is going to sit in the chair, and by the time the fourth generation comes, like, the stuff's not even going to be worth anything anymore. So he goes down that path. Then he tries sort of social satisfaction. So he chooses to marry anyone his eyes desired. He chooses to go to parties, laugh, fill his belly with alcohol, just do whatever, and none of that satisfied him. You get the idea. So that's kind of the path we were on yesterday. And what he's trying to do is get you to despair just a little bit. And we know the end of the story, so it's kind of hard to bring ourselves to that. But so far, the author has not given us any relief. And so we try our best as we're reading these pages to keep sinking lower and lower in like, man, nothing works. Nothing is going to work. I've even felt at times, I hesitate to say this, it's true. I've even felt at times church was vanity. Not that pursuing God was vanity, but there have been times where it felt like we were all just going through the motions. You know, as a kid, I would feel this way sometimes, where it's like we're putting on the suit, we go to the thing, we do the same routine, and the preaching's preached, and then we all go home. Nothing's different. Everything, like, it's so routine that it's just, I used to think, man, like, I could have not gone and nothing would have happened, and I did go and nothing happened. And so you kind of get into this low point, which is where he wants you to get so that he can bring you up with the one thing that will satisfy you. So that's where we're at. Chapter 7. Verse 1 sounds a whole lot like Proverbs that he wrote. A good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death than the day of one's birth. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting, for that is the end of all men, and the living will lay it to his heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for by the sadness of the countenance the heart is made better. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of mirth. It is better to hear the rebuke of the wise than for a man to hear the song of fools. For as the crackling of thorns under a pot, so is the laughter of the fool. This also is vanity. Surely oppression maketh a wise man mad, and a gift destroyeth the heart. Better is the end of a thing than the beginning thereof, and the patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit. Be not hasty in thy spirit to be angry, for anger resteth in the bosom of fools. Say not thou, what is the cause that the former days were better than these? For thou dost not inquire wisely concerning this. That's an interesting statement, Solomon. He's a wise guy. I mean, he really is. And I was talking to a friend the other day about this. What is the cause that the former days were better than these? Basically, he was getting on to people who always only think the good old days were the good old days and that these days are bad. And so you're just always mourning, oh, I miss the good old days back when things were simple, back when life was good and people were kind and people shook your hand and looked you in the eye, you know, and held the door for women, and things were all right back in the, you know, whatever decade you choose to reminisce about. And and he's saying, for thou dost not inquire wisely concerning this. We have such selective memories. Some people tend to think of the negative in the past, but most of us forget the negative. We have a selective memory. We only remember the positive. And I even found myself at one point being, man, I remember college. What an awesome time that was. Man, I wish I could go back to those days. And in some regards, I do. I had a lot of fun. It was very exciting. But for the most part, I was exhausted. I got sick. I got hurt. There was equally or more bad going on in college than there was good as far as life circumstances. But, you know, you just think of the good old stuff, and you tend to forget about the bad. And Solomon says, you're not wise. You know, people who are always talking about the good old days and then they're just grumpy about the current, it's generally speaking not a wise thing. And they have a bad memory. Okay. Verse 11. Wisdom is good with an inheritance, and by it there is profit to them that see the sun. For wisdom is a defense, and money is a defense, but the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it. Consider the work of God, for who can make that straight which he hath made crooked? In the day of prosperity be joyful, but in the day of adversity consider. God also hath set the one over against the other, to the end that man should find nothing after him. All things have I seen in the days of my vanity. There is a just man that perisheth in his righteousness, and there is a wicked man that prolongeth his life in his wickedness. Be not righteous over much, neither make thyself over wise. Why shouldest thou destroy thyself? Be not overmuch wicked, neither be thou foolish. Why shouldest thou die before thy time? It is good that thou shouldest take hold of this. Yea, also from this withdraw not thine hand. For he that feareth God shall come forth of them all. Wisdom strengtheneth the wise more than 10 mighty men which are in the city. For there is not a just man upon earth that doeth good and sinneth not. Also take no heed unto all the words that are spoken, lest thou hear thy servant curse thee. Oh, that's an interesting one. Not every word that's spoken you need to listen to and pay attention to. That kind of reads my mail today. I need to be careful about that. You hear like a hint of like somebody said something about you, and if people aren't really offering information about that, you're probably wise not to dig into it. Hey, you said something. What did he say about me? You know, you're digging it up. You're looking it up online, trying to figure it out. You know, that's not wise. You know, all you're gonna do is find something that's hurtful. So you might as well not look for it. Anyways, verse 22. For oftentimes also thine own heart knoweth that thou thyself likewise hast cursed others. Yeah, so you're kind of digging up this person's sin by doing so. And it's kind of a prideful thing because you've got your own sin to deal with. He's basically saying, mind your own business and deal with your own sin. Stop worrying about everybody else's sin. Verse 23, all this have I proved by wisdom. I said, I will be wise, but it was far from me. That which is far off and exceeding deep, who can find it out? I applied mine heart to know and to search and to seek out wisdom and the reason of things, and to know the wickedness of folly, even of foolishness and madness. And I find more bitter than death the woman, whose heart is snares and nets, and her hands as bands. Whoso pleaseth God shall escape from her, but the sinner shall be taken by her. Behold, this have I found, saith the preacher, counting one by one, to find out the account, which yet my soul seeketh, but I have not. One man among 1,000 have I found, but a woman among all those have I not found. Lo, this one have I found, that God hath made man upright, but they have sought out many inventions. Wow. I mentioned it yesterday, and I'm going to mention it again tomorrow. The wisdom books, Job, Psalms, Proverbs, they have so much language that calls you back to remembrance of the first 3 chapters of the Bible. And what you've got 2 trees in the Garden of Eden that are very special above the other trees. There's the tree of life. There's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And then there's important players, right? There's God himself, who comes down in the cool of the day to walk with Adam and teach him, literally to disciple him. He instructs him. He tells him what is good. And then you have Adam and Eve, and then apparently lurking in the shadows is the serpent. And not much is spoken of the tree of life. It's not forbidden. It never says you can't eat from it, as far as we know. It says you just can't eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Just the name of the tree tells you what it represents. The tree there is of identifying good and evil. That word evil isn't always just sin. It's just like bad. The tree of good and bad. It's right and wrong, just the classic stuff. And so you can either walk with God and let him define what's right and let him deal with what is wrong and let him be your guide, which is where you will truly be wise. Or you can take wisdom for yourself and you can take that understanding. Basically, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is an attempt to remove God from the equation. I want wisdom, the knowledge of good and evil, without God. So I will apply myself to this wisdom. And all you end up finding out when you try to seek wisdom without God, you try to define that which is right in your own eyes, is a way it's described in the Old Testament. Oh, things fall apart. And really the whole Old Testament before Christ is kind of like this big spiral and crash of humanity. And it's just story after story of people who are flawed and breaking down. Well, you've got Solomon here, and he's saying that he applied himself to knowledge. He was confronted with, you can either fear God and keep his commandments, Solomon, or you can take this wisdom and pursue your own ideas. And so he decided to take his wisdom and pursue his own ideas. Essentially, Solomon did what Eve did, and he took of the tree as well. And he's coming back from that experience and saying, that only brings death. It's all vanity. Don't go down that path. So really, Solomon and Eve and Adam have a whole lot in common with you and I sometimes. That which is right in our own eyes only leads to death. Find out what's right in God's eyes. They've sought out many inventions. Chapter 8. Who is as the wise man? And who knoweth the interpretation of a thing? A man's wisdom maketh his face to shine, and the boldness of his face shall be changed. I counsel thee to keep the king's commandment, and that in regard of the oath of God. Be not hasty to go out of his sight, stand not in an evil thing, for he doeth whatsoever pleaseth him. Where the word of a king is, there is power. And who may say unto him, What doest thou? Whoso keepeth the commandment shall feel no evil thing, and a wise man's heart discerneth both time and judgment. Because to every purpose there is a time and judgment. Therefore the misery of man is great upon him. For he knoweth not that which shall be, for who can tell him when it shall be? There is no man that hath power over the spirit to retain the spirit, neither hath he power in the day of death, and there is no discharge in that war, neither shall wickedness deliver those that are given to it. All this have I seen, and applied mine heart unto every work that is done under the sun. There is a time wherein one man ruleth over another to his own hurt. And so I saw the wicked buried, who had come and gone from the place of the holy, and they were forgotten in the city, where they had done. This is also vanity. Because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. Though a sinner do evil 100 times, and his days be prolonged, yet surely I know that it shall be well with them that fear God, which fear before him. But it shall not be well with the wicked, neither shall he prolong his days, which are as a shadow, because he feareth not before God. There is a vanity which is done upon the earth, that there be just men, unto whom it happeneth according to the work of the wicked. Again, there be wicked men, to whom it happeneth according to the work of the righteous. I said that this also is vanity. Then I commended mirth, because a man hath no better thing under the sun than to eat and to drink and to be merry. For that shall abide with him of his labor the days of his life, which God giveth him under the sun. When I applied mine heart to know wisdom, and to see the business that is done upon the earth, for also there is that neither day nor night seeth sleep with his eyes, then I beheld all the work of God, that a man cannot find out the work that is done under the sun. Because though a man labor to seek it out, yet he shall not find it. Yea, farther, though a wise man think to know it, yet shall he not be able to find it. So he's talking about a couple things. Firstly, he just brings up the common thing of, it seems like the wicked and the righteous end up dying, and they're buried in the same graveyard. Like, what was the big difference? But then he also brings up in the end here, pursuits and work and labor. Basically, if you could comprehend all that is going on, basically full knowledge of all the workings of men, then maybe you'd be satisfied. Maybe you would have an understanding of things. Basically, he's saying that even though I'm really, really wise, I'm not omniscient. And there are always things going on that I don't know about. So he couldn't stand it. He couldn't stand meetings happening and him not knowing that the meeting is happening, and buildings being constructed in regions beyond that he didn't know about. He thought maybe if I understood everything that man is doing, basically, if I could be omniscient, then I might be satisfied, but I can't. And there's always things going on that I can't watch. Chapter 9. For all this I considered in my heart, even to declare all this, that the righteous and the wise and their works are in the hand of God. No man knoweth either love or hatred by all that is before them. All things come alike to all. There is one event to the righteous and to the wicked, to the good and to the clean and to the unclean. To him that sacrificeth and to him that sacrificeth not, as is the good, so is the sinner. And he that sweareth as he that feareth an oath. This is an evil among all things that are done under the sun, that there is one event unto all. Yea, also the heart of the sons of men is full of evil, and madness is in their heart while they live, and after that they go to the dead. For to him that is joined to all the living there is hope. For a living dog is better than a dead lion. That's true. Verse 5. For the living know that they shall die, but the dead know not anything. Neither have they any more a reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. Also their love and their hatred and their envy is now perished. Neither have they any more a portion forever in anything that is done under the sun. Go thy way, eat thy bread with joy, and drink thy wine with a merry heart, for God now accepteth thy works. Let thy garments be always white, and let thy head lack no ointment. Live joyfully with the wife whom thou lovest all the days of the life of thy vanity, which he hath given thee under the sun, all the days of thy vanity, for that is thy portion in this life, and in thy labor which thou takest under the sun. So a guy who's pursued everything and has not been truly satisfied by them is turning around and saying, on the way back from this long hike that was not worth it, it was too difficult, it was not fun, and it killed him. He comes back, and before others embark on this path, he's just telling them straight up, hey, God blesses you with certain things, like if he gives you a wife and he gives you whatever, gives you a life, just enjoy that. Going beyond that is not going to bring you any extra satisfaction. You think like the math of the world would be like, okay, I marry a wife and there's a lot of satisfaction, there's a lot of pleasure, a lot of love and all of this. But then they start believing this lie that if I have an affair, as long as nobody finds out, it's kind of like 1 + 1 is 2. Like I've doubled the pleasure in my life, right? And then account after account after account of regret. My wife equals, if she's 1, and then doing having this like affair, that is not like an addition, it's a subtraction. You're actually ruining the benefits that God has given to you. And so Solomon comes back after this long journey and says, don't go down that road, man. Don't do it. Don't go down that path. Just enjoy your wife, love her, love that she loves you, and just enjoy that. And when you're drinking water out of another's cistern and you're not staying home, it's not what you think it is. What did he have, like 600 wives? I can't remember the number. He didn't have 600 times the enjoyment and satisfaction than a man who has 1 wife. He didn't. And that's what he's saying. He's using the singular right here in verse 9. Live joyfully with the wife, singular, whom thou lovest all the days of the life of thy vanity. So 600 is not more than 1 in God's mathematics. 1 is what God has intended for a man and a woman. 1 woman, 1 man for 1 lifetime, And so adding to that, whether technically or practically through affairs, Solomon says, 600 wives is not 600 times the pleasure of a person with 1 wife. In fact, just stick with 1 wife. That's the most satisfying marital relationship. Anyway, verse 10, whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might, for there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave whither thou goest. It's funny, I keep on reading things that are quoted in the New Testament, and you think, wow, he was quoting Ecclesiastes when he said that. Ephesians and Colossians, whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might. That's quoted in both of those books, maybe elsewhere, I can't remember. That's interesting. It's great wisdom, and Yeah, anyway, just thinking about that. Verse 11, I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding, nor yet favor to men of skill, but time and chance happeneth to them all. For man also knoweth not his time, as the fishes that are taken in an evil net, and as the birds that are caught in the snare, so are the sons of men snared in an evil time, when it falleth suddenly upon them. This wisdom have I seen also under the sun, and it seemeth great unto me. There was a little city, and few men within it, and there came a great king against it, and besieged it, and built great bulwarks against it. Now there was found in it a poor wise man, and he by wisdom delivered the city. Yet no man remembered that same poor man. Then said I, wisdom is better than strength. Nevertheless the poor man's wisdom is despised, and his words are not heard. The words of wise men are heard in quiet, more than the cry of him that ruleth among fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroyeth much good. Wow. Chapter 10. Okay. Dead flies cause the ointment of the apothecary to send forth a stinking savor. So doth a little folly him that is in reputation for wisdom and honor. Oh, it's funny. I can't remember who said this, but, it was a joke. One time someone asked someone, what's your life verse? I don't know if you guys are familiar with that terminology, a life verse. When I was growing up, the circles that I was in, people would basically choose a verse that sort of epitomized their life mission, or they felt was it really inspiring. You basically choose a verse that is sort of like your foundation. It's your ground zero, your true north, and it's the one that you bring up. And so what's your life verse? And a lot of times people say Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me, or 2 Timothy 2:15, study to show thyself, choosing verses. And one guy stands up, all right, Ecclesiastes 10:1, dead flies cause the ointment of the apothecary to stink, and to send forth a stinking savor, and sits down and acts like that was really spiritual, and everybody's, what? Anyway, there's really no point to that story. Verse 2, a wise man's heart is at his right hand, but a fool's heart at his left. Yea, also, when he that is a fool walketh by the way, his wisdom faileth him, and he saith to every one that he is a fool. If the spirit of the ruler rise up against thee, leave not thy place, for yielding pacifieth great offenses. There is an evil which I have seen under the sun, as an error which proceedeth from the ruler. Folly is set in great dignity, and the rich sit in a low place. I have seen servants upon horses, and princes walking as servants upon the earth. He that diggeth a pit shall fall into it, and whoso breaketh an hedge, a serpent shall bite him. Whoso removeth stones shall be hurt therewith, and he that cleaveth wood shall be endangered thereby. If the iron be blunt, and he do not whet the edge, then must he put to more strength, but wisdom is profitable to direct. Surely the serpent will bite without enchantment, and a babbler is no better. The words of a wise man's mouth are gracious, but the lips of a fool will swallow it up himself. The beginning of the words of his mouth is foolishness, and the end of his talk is mischievous madness. A fool also is full of words. A man cannot tell what he shall be. A man cannot tell what shall be, and what shall be after him. Who can tell him? The labor of the foolish wearieth every one of them, because he knoweth not how to go to the city. Woe to thee, O land! And when thy king is a child, and thy princes eat in the morning. Blessed art thou, O land, when thy king is the son of nobles, and thy princes eat in due season, for strength, and not for drunkenness. By much slothfulness the building decayeth, and through idleness of the hands the house droppeth through. A feast is made for laughter, and wine maketh merry, but money answereth all things. Curse not the king, no, not in thy thought, and curse not the rich in thy bedchamber, for a bird of the air shall carry the voice, and that which hath wings shall tell the matter. Chapter 11. Cast thy bread upon the waters, for thou shalt find it after many days. I wish I could remember that. There's something that that verse, what's it mean? When I think of throwing bread on the water, it's just going to get soggy and disappear. And there's a cultural understanding of that. If you guys remember that, there's something about casting your bread upon the water, for thou shalt find it after many days. Was that some sort of a preservation method? I can't remember how that worked. But it's not common to our culture and time frame, and so it's kind of confusing to read that verse. But if you guys can remember what that's talking about, it would be helpful to the group, I think. Verse 2, give a portion to 7 and also to 8, for thou knowest not what evils shall be upon the earth. If the clouds be full of rain, they empty themselves upon the earth. And if the tree fall toward the south or toward the north, in the place where the tree falleth, there it shall be. He that observeth the wind shall not sow, and he that regardeth the clouds shall not reap. As thou knowest not what is the way of the Spirit, nor how the bones do grow in the womb of her that is with child, even so thou knowest not the works of God who maketh all. In the morning sow thy seed, and in the evening withhold not thine hand, for thou knowest not whether shall prosper, either this or that, or whether they both shall be alike good. Truly, the light is sweet, and a pleasant thing it is for the eyes to behold the sun. But if a man live many years, and rejoice in them all, yet let them remember the days of darkness, for they shall be many. All that cometh is vanity. Rejoice, O young man, in thy youth, and let thy heart cheer thee in the days of thy youth, and walk in the ways of thine heart, and in the sight of thine eyes. But know thou that for all these things God will bring thee into judgment. Therefore remove sorrow from thy heart, and put away evil from thy flesh, for childhood and youth are vanity. All right, last chapter, and some really great stuff he says here, so let's read it. Chapter 12, remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. Before I continue on, really he begins his conclusion in chapter 12. He's told us about all these different paths he's been down, and how unprofitable they were, how vain all of that was. And so the preacher is kind of writing his last paragraph here and is concluding, so keep your remembrance on the Creator. That's what matters, is the Creator. Your relationship to the Creator, walking with Him, is greater than pursuing your own idea of wisdom and knowledge and identifying good and evil on your terms rather than letting God define those things for you. And so he comes back from that, and right next to Adam and Eve, they're all saying with the juice of the fruit dripping down their face, don't do it, don't eat of that. It's not, don't pursue your own ideas. Just follow God. That is where wisdom is found. That's why it says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. That is so counterintuitive. We think the acquiring of knowledge is the beginning of wisdom. If I want wisdom, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to get a doctorate. I'm going to talk to wise people. I'm going to ingest and read and intake so that I can be full of wisdom. And truth of the matter is, the only one who can give you true wisdom, the wisdom that gives life, I ought to say, because it said that the serpent was wise. So it's the kind of wisdom that matters. I want the kind of wisdom that brings life and meaning and purpose and value. And that wisdom is only found in walking with the Creator. That's why he starts chapter 12. Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. While the sun or the light or the moon or the stars. So he's actually describing at the second half of verse 12 or verse 1 and into the coming verses, he's talking about your youth. He's telling young people, hey, you should spend your entire life remembering your Creator. While the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. So as you age, different things happen to your body. You're in pain. You start losing your senses. You can't see very well. You can't hear very well. You can't taste very well. Things change, and your body is not as prime as it once was. And he's telling them at the end of all this path, as they're lacing up their hiking shoes, don't go down this hike. Don't do that path. Just walk with God. That's the only thing that can bring you any sort of satisfaction. And so he starts describing in the next few verses old age. So he's telling them, he's giving them signs. Before you get to this point, just remember that Creator, okay? So while the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain, he's referring to your eyesight. And the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves. Talking about your knees, they're shaky, and you struggle to even stand up, and you have to sit down more often than not, and you have to, the wheelchair sort of thing. And the grinders cease, because they are few. The grinders, those are your teeth. So you're starting to lose your teeth. You can't see anymore. Your knees can't hold you up anymore. And those that look out of the windows be darkened. And when the doors shall be shut in the streets, when the sound of the grinding is low, and he shall rise up at the voice of the bird. You can't sleep anymore. You just wake up super early in the morning. And all the daughters of music shall be brought low. Can't hear music very well. Also when they shall be afraid of that which is high, and fears shall be in the way, and the almond tree shall flourish, and the grasshopper shall be a burden, and desire shall fail. So there's no more passion for much, and there's a lot of fear. A lot of times, especially in the oldest of age, prior to death, a lot of people end up just with a lot of fears. Just like going to the store can be a terrifying thing. Because man goeth to his long home, and the mourners go about the streets. Or ever the silver cord be loosed, or the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher be broken at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern. Then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, all is vanity. And moreover, because the preacher was wise, he still taught the people knowledge. Actually, the next few verses are pretty astounding. This is a great description of good Bible preaching, okay? So, because the preacher was wise, this is how a wise preacher preaches. I know that this is more or less a lecture like from a teacher, but either way, this is helpful for someone articulating biblical truth, okay? It says, because he was wise, he still taught the people knowledge. You've got to give them information. Yea, he gave good heed. So not only are you giving information, you're also really trying to persuade people of the truth that you're saying. You're not just giving them the information and leaving it there. You're trying to give them, you're warning them, no, listen to this, you need this. So you're trying to persuade them as well. It says, and sought out and set in order many proverbs. So you're consistent, and you're saying a lot of Bible. Verse 10, the preacher sought to find out acceptable words, and that which was written was upright, even words of truth. The words of the wise are as goads, and as nails fastened by the masters of assemblies, which are given from one shepherd. And further by these, my son, be admonished, of making many books there is no end, and much study is a weariness of the flesh. Amen, said the students. So verse 12 is kind of like the last little path he went down. Maybe if I just read a lot of books and get a lot of wisdom, then I will finally be satisfied. And he comes back and like, man, that was hard, and it didn't satisfy me. So here it is. Verse 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. The whole matter. You realize what is encompassed in that statement, the whole matter? He's talking about his whole life. Every pursuit for satisfaction that he has gone for. Every trick that he has fallen for. The wisest man in the world still falling for that 557th wife, 558th wife. All of these buildings he's built. Maybe if I just build another building, I will be satisfied. Nope, didn't work. Let's do another building. Let's do this. Let's read another book. Let's get another ape. Nothing's working. I'm not happy. I'm not satisfied. It's all vanity. We're all going to die. So here's the conclusion of the whole matter, his entire pursuit of life. You ready for it? Fear God. Well, that's the beginning of wisdom. That's the only way to be satisfied. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. He actually alludes to final judgment. So he's been talking about everything under the sun for the entire book. Everything under the sun vanishes. Everything created. You know, it's one of the laws that you cannot create nor destroy matter. I can't do that. I can't. I can't make up matter, and I cannot destroy it. But the Bible says that the elements will burn up with a fervent heat. And when it uses that elements, I mean, we're talking cell level. Like God is literally going to melt the cells of this universe. Everything that's been created just by God's word, all matter, is passing, it's transitory. And God is going to make a new Jerusalem, which is not going to be made of the same kind of decaying stuff that this earth is. So Solomon looks at everything in this earth and realizes that it all vanishes away. It's all just smoke. It all just appears and goes, and it's vanity. But God doesn't. And what I do with this vanity, this life that I have, is going to be brought to remembrance in the final day. I'm going to be judged for this life. So fear God and keep his commandments, because that's the only thing that matters at Judgment Day. It really does. That's the only thing that matters at Judgment Day. Did I walk with God, or did I choose to define wisdom on my own terms, in my own way? Did I eat of that tree, or did I walk with God in the cool of the day? It's your choice. It's my choice. We've already made our choices in many ways, and we've come back empty when we've decided to do it our way. When we've done it God's way, Lindell was telling a story yesterday of a person was spewing forth wrath to her, just being angry and mean, and she responded with a soft answer. And so rather than defining what was the right response in her own way, she chose to listen to the admonition of God, who said, "A soft answer turneth away wrath." And so she just stuck with his wisdom and ignored her instincts probably. And that rescued her. She said, "I'm sorry." She was very apologetic and kind. And the man just froze. He didn't know what to do. Just no response. And so yeah, let's fear God and keep his commandments. That is the whole duty of man. And he's going to bring those things into judgment. So those things matter at the end. Everything else, smoke. Let's pray. Lord, thank you for your word today. And I pray that you would just bless our church. I pray that we would learn the lesson that Ecclesiastes was begging us to learn. Just begging us to learn that all of these pursuits are not worth it if we're not remembering our Creator, if we're not fearing God and keeping his commandments. So give us wisdom, and Lord, help us. Lord, help us to follow you. In Jesus' name, amen. I forgot to check on your comments, so let's see what's going on. I noticed a few of them over here. I'm starting out on Facebook here. And good morning to everyone. Good, Kathy. Kathy gave a report that her Zoom fellowship group was really was great. I'm glad to hear that. I believe that these are really healthy for our church. Good morning, everybody. Jerry, I think you're referring to the way you feel like even sometimes the going through the motions of church can feel like vanity. Especially, I mean, you can go to church and not be pursuing God. So that's the point I was trying to make. And she said, "I felt that way after a church split, which I've been through twice." Wow. Yeah, that's tough. That's tough, and it could be very discouraging and I can't think of the right word, but yeah, sad. Also, Jerry said, "But then there was a pastor's wife and her 2 young boys that came to rent electronic equipment from our music store." Is that how that worked, Jerry? So you guys had some bad experiences with church, and then the Hendersons had their music store. What was the name of your music store? I was just so young. All I remember is I do remember going to your music store, Jerry. I don't remember your story here. I was just too young, I think. But I remember going to the music store, seeing DJ, and DJ gave me and Kyle a couple of those suckers. Gave us suckers that were also like whistles. You could, I think there were a couple holes too. You could try to play a song as you're eating your sucker. And that's my only memory of the music store. All right. Jerry Lee also says chapter 9, verses 7 through 10 are verses are like life advice in a nutshell. Yeah, Solomon does pretty good with that, doesn't he? He's a pretty awesome guy. And she says, to do something kind or good without expecting anything in return. But I don't know about the cultural meaning. What was I asking? I was asking about The casting the bread on the waters. Okay, cool. That's helpful, Jerry. Thank you for that. Let's go over to the church page and see if anybody's commenting at all. Kevin said, yes, we had a wonderful night talking about the fellowship group, and Dave responded too. And then Kevin also is responding to the casting the bread on the waters, to do something kind or good without expecting anything in return. Okay, so casting your bread on the waters, so bread was, analogous, still is actually in many cultures, but analogous to just nourishment at all, like food. It's kind of synonymous with your nourishment. So throwing it out on the water, I wonder if that is just saying you're giving it away, and giving your stuff away is not wasteful. You'll benefit from that as well. I don't know. It's interesting. Interesting stuff. Maybe I'll look it up and see if I can give you guys a better response to that later on. Tillamook Music. Also, Wayne in the Halls encouraged us to attend. Oh, that's cool. The Tillamook Music Store. And then we used that space for a youth group at some point, too. I remember going up there and playing games, Jerry. That was fun. So, all right, guys. We already prayed, so let's call it a day. Good reading. Looking forward to tomorrow. It will be anything but boring, that's for sure. So reading Song of Solomon, and I think it's actually going to be, hopefully, maybe a first time through for some people. If not a first time through, maybe a first time, hopefully, where we're understanding why it's there, what it's supposed to mean, and some of that stuff. So, all right, guys, I will see you tomorrow. God bless you.